Achilles, a name that echoes through history, drenched in blood, glory, and tragedy. The greatest warrior of the Trojan War, unstoppable, invincible, until one fatal moment changed everything. His story begins with a prophecy. Achilles, born to the mortal king Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis, was destined for greatness. But fate had a cruel price. He would either live a long, unremarkable life or die young and be remembered forever. Thetis, desperate to protect her son, sought a way to make him invulnerable. She dipped him into the sacred River Styx, its mystical waters making his skin impervious to harm. But as she held him by the ankle, that one small spot remained untouched, his only weakness. Achilles was raised not as an ordinary prince but as a warrior. Under the legendary centaur Chiron, he trained in the art of combat, strategy, and wisdom. He became a force of nature, swift, powerful, and unmatched in battle. He forged strong bonds, especially with his closest companion, Patroclus, whose fate would one day ignite Achilles' darkest fury. But war came knocking. The Trojan War erupted, and the Greek kings summoned their mightiest warriors to fight. Thetis, knowing her son's fate, disguised him as a woman and hid him in the court of King Lycomedes. But destiny cannot be tricked. Odysseus, cunning as ever, uncovered Achilles' disguise, forcing him to choose between a quiet life or immortal glory on the battlefield. He chose war. From the moment Achilles set foot on the shores of Troy, he was unstoppable. Leading 50 ships and the fearsome Myrmidons, he cut through enemy lines like a divine storm. No Trojan could stand against him. His reputation spread like wildfire. Even the gods took notice. But it wasn't the Trojans who threatened Achilles, it was his own allies. When Agamemnon, the Greek commander, was forced to return a captured girl to appease the gods, he demanded Achilles' prized war captive, Briseis, as compensation. Achilles was furious. His pride wounded, he nearly killed Agamemnon on the spot. Only the goddess Athena stopped him. Instead, he made a bold decision. He refused to fight. Without him, the Greeks suffered devastating losses. The Trojans, led by the mighty Hector, pushed the Greeks back, even setting their ships ablaze. Seeing their destruction, Patroclus, Achilles' dearest friend, begged him to return to battle. Achilles refused but allowed Patroclus to wear his armor and lead the Myrmidons in his place. It was a decision that would haunt him forever. On the battlefield, the sight of Achilles' armor struck fear into the Trojans. Patroclus fought bravely, driving them back. But in his thirst for victory, he went too far. He faced Hector, the greatest Trojan warrior, and lost. Hector, believing he had slain Achilles himself, took the armor as a trophy. When the news reached Achilles, something inside him shattered. Grief turned to rage, and rage became an unstoppable force. He returned to the battlefield, cutting through the Trojan army with terrifying wrath. Even the gods hesitated before his fury. He slaughtered countless warriors, their blood staining the river Scamander. The river god himself rose against him, nearly drowning him, but Hephaestus sent flames to drive the waters back. Nothing could stop Achilles now. Then he faced Hector. The Trojan prince, knowing his fate was sealed, stood his ground. He begged for an honorable burial should he fall, but Achilles refused. There can be no pacts between lions and men, he declared. Their battle shook the walls of Troy, but in the end, Achilles struck with perfect precision, piercing Hector's heart. But death was not enough. Achilles tied Hector's lifeless body to his chariot and dragged him around the city, a final insult to Troy. Only when King Priam, Hector's grieving father, knelt before Achilles and begged for his son's body did the great warrior's heart soften. Moved by the old king's sorrow, he returned Hector's body for a hero's funeral. But Achilles' fate was sealed. He continued his rampage, slaughtering the Amazonian queen Penthesilea and the Ethiopian king Memnon. He was untouchable, a god of war in human form. And then his moment of reckoning arrived. Paris, the Trojan prince, was no warrior. He could never face Achilles in battle. But with the god Apollo guiding his hand, he loosed an arrow. It struck the one place Achilles was vulnerable, the heel his mother had held when she dipped him in the Styx. A single wound, but it was enough. The deadliest Greek warrior, the unstoppable force of the Trojan War, fell. The Greeks mourned their greatest hero. His funeral pyre burned bright against the night, his legend immortalized in fire and ash. The Greeks mourned their greatest hero. His funeral pyre burned bright against the night, his legend immortalized in fire and ash. But Achilles' death was not the end of his story, it was the beginning of his myth. His body was carried back to the Greek camp, where his comrades wept for the warrior who had once been unstoppable. Odysseus, Agamemnon, and Menelaus stood in solemn silence, while the Myrmidons, his fiercely loyal warriors, mourned their fallen leader. Even those who had clashed with him in life now honored him in death. A funeral worthy of the greatest warrior was prepared. The Greeks built a towering pyre on the shores of Troy. They adorned it with the finest armor, golden treasures, and the spoils of war. The flames roared into the sky, consuming the body of the hero, sending his spirit to the afterlife. Patroclus, his beloved companion, was laid to rest alongside him, so they could fight side by side for eternity. But Achilles' legacy was far from over. The war raged on, and the Greeks, now fueled by vengeance, sought to end the conflict once and for all. A new warrior stepped forward, Peleus, the son of Achilles, a young fighter with his father's bloodlust and strength. He arrived at Troy, ready to claim victory in his father's name. The Greeks devised their final strategy, the Trojan horse. Deception, not brute force, would bring the city to its knees. Peleus was among the warriors hidden within the wooden structure. As night fell and the Trojans unknowingly pulled their doom into their city, the Greek soldiers waited. Then, under the cover of darkness, they emerged, swords drawn. The city of Troy fell, consumed by fire and slaughter. In the end, Achilles' death had set the stage for Troy's downfall. His rage, his battles, and his legend lived on, shaping history forever. Though his body was gone, his name would never be forgotten. Even today, thousands of years later, the story of Achilles, the deadliest Greek warrior, continues to captivate, reminding the world of a man who chose glory over life and became immortal in the only way that mattered.